Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Notes by Alex. I don't know how to start this one. It's really snowing out there. I might have to take a video of that after and put it in the video for you guys because it's coming down. Look at the snow, everybody. Ah! Also, tell me what I'm doing wrong with this aloe vera because he doesn't look good, but I don't know what to do anymore. The time has come for comparing a movie to a book. I wanted to put some time between my discussion of the Road book and this video because I just wanted to get into other topics, change it up a little bit. But I took notes on the movie, and the movie's still fresh in my head, and I don't want to forget all the details. So I think it's time that we do this. So what's the point of this video? What is the point of comparing the Road novel to the movie? It's a really good question. I don't really know. I just thought it would be kind of fun. To be honest, I'm not one of those people who gets into arguments about, is the book better? Is the movie better? For all the books I've read that also have a movie that I've seen, I prefer one of them, but I just feel like they're different things. And saying which one's better is like apples and oranges. I don't know. I think there is the possibility that a movie and a book can coexist and be different works of art and, be just as good and have people prefer one for personal reasons, but without saying one is objectively worse. I think that can exist. Of course, there are examples of this where the book exists and then the movie exists and the movie's just a bad movie. I'm trying to think of an example of a movie that's just like way worse than the book. I'll think on this and I will put the picture of the movie poster right here. That's it. That was a bad movie. I think a book and a movie can coexist. Having said that, I watched the Road movie. I didn't like it nearly as much as the book. I want to talk about it a little bit. I don't really know why. I think the movie was disappointing for me because I can picture a film version of The Road so clearly in my head, and I think they came very close to getting it right. They did a lot of really good things with it, and it just barely misses the mark for me. Before I get into this video, I should also say there are going to be spoilers. I can't compare the film and the book without talking about specific plot points. So a lot of the story is going to be spoiled. If you are looking for a spoiler-free discussion of the book, I have a video of that. I will put the link right here. Can you do that? Can you do that on YouTube? Okay, I'll either put the link right here or it'll just be a photo of a very disappointed looking guy. Having said that, you don't need to watch my video. I would say just go read the book. It's not very long and it's pretty easy to get through. Without rambling anymore, I guess let's just get into it and talk about what I thought the movie did well and what it did not so well. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. I have my very official notebook right here for you. Okay, let us talk about the things that I think the Road movie did right. First of all, I think the movie looks great. By that, I mean it looks hideous. That was the point, though. It's set in the apocalypse. You are not supposed to be able to see the sun. It's supposed to be dreary and miserable. And I think they did a fairly good job of capturing that. I can picture in my head the kind of cinematographer and DP that would be so tempted to make it look ugly but beautiful. Like there's ways to make the apocalypse look strangely beautiful on film. And I think if there was a cinematographer who was going for the Oscar this year, they could have very easily done that. But this movie's just kind of gross. And that's great. I think it looks awesome. This is kind of a hard thing to explain, especially since I am not a qualified movie critic or qualified book critic or qualified for anything. But yeah, I think the movie looks fittingly atrocious. Okay, so I wrote the boy, the man, the boy and the man. What do I mean by that? Well, I think the boy is a really talented actor. I think in the book, I pictured him younger than this guy is. So some of the lines came off a little bit like he acts naive and he's old enough clearly on film where I was like, you should know this by now. But, well, first of all, he's being raised in the apocalypse, so maybe he just learns about life a little bit slower and differently. He learns different things, right? The other thing to consider is that if they went with a younger actor, I think it'd be really easy to pick someone who's not very good. There's not very many talented young child actors. So it could have gone south really quickly. All things considered, I think the boy pulls it off. He's a good actor. The man is played by, why didn't I look up how to pronounce his name? Viggo Mortensen? Aragorn. He's played by Aragorn. He's really good. That's not even a hard name. Anyways, they both do a great job. The reason I put the boy and the man is because I think their dynamic is really great. And the dynamic between the two was very important to get right because it is a large part of the story. This film is largely about two people, and if they were miscast and they didn't have good chemistry, it would have been very easy for this to just be bleh. And it's not. I think they do well on screen together, so that's awesome. The fire is not over-explained. Yes, okay, so carrying the fire is used as a metaphor in the book. It's interspersed fairly seldomly throughout the novel, and it's never explained fully. It's explained enough that I thought it was very clear, and I think it would be clear to anyone reading. It's not difficult to pick up on what carrying the fire means to the characters. Going into this movie, I had full expectation that they would have over-explained this because I just don't have faith in screenwriters. I think they assume audiences are dummies, which is not true. I was pleasantly surprised that they did not over-explain what carrying the fire means. I have that the violence is very matter of fact. What do I mean by that? Well, the violence is not downplayed and it's not played for shock. The world of The Road is shocking. It's the apocalypse. There is some horrific violence committed. I think it would have been really easy for a director to play up how horrific it is and just make it this gory mess. It tackles all the violent, horrific themes of the book, but it's all played very straight. It's just, if a gunfight went down, this is what it would look like. There's one scene in particular of the man shooting another man who is threatening his son. Maybe I'll play the clip. Let's do it. So that shot is very non-cinematic to me. Like, there's nothing like action-y about it. He just shoots him, which I actually think added to the tension more than if they tried to make it this very intense scene. The man has his son. It's tense enough without needing to resort to, camera tricks or anything like that. He just, bang, shoots him in the head. It's a small thing, but I really appreciated it. That's the end of my good list. I will say, I'm glad they didn't chop too much of the book. As I was watching, I was slightly frustrated by how quickly they were going through certain parts that I thought deserved more, like a longer scene. But at the same time, they could have easily made this story into 3 hours. It's an hour-and-a-half movie, which at the time of release was pretty standard. It seems like theatrical releases are going towards the hour 45, 2 hour mark now. But this film is 12 years old. Like, at the time, hour-and-a-half was kind of standard. And, that's showbiz, baby. I get it. I get why they kind of flew through everything a little bit. Ultimately, I'm glad that they included everything rather than chopping a bunch of the story. I actually think that this book would be well suited to a very short TV series, which there was not nearly as much money being pumped into television in 2009. And now, Netflix streaming, I think somebody should fund The Road miniseries. It would only have to be like 4 episodes and they could be an hour long. And I think they could get through everything and give it the time to breathe. Oh, I'm not done with my list of good. There's one more thing. There's a scene in the movie that I don't remember in the book. I do have a goldfish brain, but I really don't think it happened in the book. But I'm glad they added it, which, additions, it's really easy to get defensive and go, why'd you do that? That's not in the book. Don't do that. You think you're better than the author? But no, I thought it was a nice touch. They go to a waterfall, and it's pretty much the only use of color in the whole movie. There's a rainbow, and the boy's suitably amazed by it. I mean, in an apocalypse where you never see the sun, like the world is gray because there's always like a cover of ash. So I guess a little bit of sun peeks through at this waterfall and, refracts the waterfall. That's science, right? That's how rainbows work. Yikes. And the kid is suitably amazed and he acts like he's never seen a rainbow before, which he probably hasn't. And it's kind of touching. Like it's a nice bit, and it's visually refreshing as well. It's like a breath of fresh air for the viewer. I thought it was really well done. So, okay. So that is what I thought was good. I'm going to get into the bad. And honestly, most of it is just stuff I didn't prefer. The biggest one for me is I think they could have done without the soundtrack. Now, I know there's not many movies that don't have a soundtrack at all. I will say Cormac McCarthy wrote No Country for Old Men, and then the Coen brothers made a movie out of it, and there is no music in that movie, and it is great. I know they probably wouldn't have wanted to do that again. Not many films do it. You need a soundtrack. I get that. They picked the wrong guys for it, though. I looked up the creators of the soundtrack, and it's 2 guys. I had never heard of them. I didn't recognize any other movies they had done. Swing and a miss, guys. It's too syrupy. Like, it's so melancholy. And the world of The Road speaks for itself. Like, everyone knows it's horrific. You don't need to make all this miserable music. And then, like, the moments between the man and a boy, they're so saccharine sweet. It just, none of it worked for me. It felt kind of soap opera-ish. I know this is all subjective, like music is subjective. And Devil's Advocate, there was one scene where I really liked the soundtrack. There was one time where I thought it hit really hard emotionally, and I thought it did a really good job. But overall, I don't think they needed to have such an over-the-top soundtrack. I don't know. Maybe I would have liked it more if they just trimmed it back, like just use music for specific scenes. Don't have it in every scene. I don't know. I'm not a filmmaker. That was a big one for me. It was almost distracting. Okay, so I did not like the voiceover at the beginning of the movie. I get why they have to do this. After a fairly quick opening scene, the man narrates some stuff and gets the viewer up to speed on what's going on in the world. Some of the lines of the voiceover throughout the movie are taken verbatim from the book's narration. They're good, yeah, like I like that much. But specifically right at the beginning, I think it over-explains a little bit. It's like 6 minutes into the movie at this point, and Aragorn says this.
There's been cannibalism. Cannibalism is the great fear.
It's not hard to guess that in a apocalyptic wasteland where there's no food, there's probably cannibals out there. It's not the first apocalyptic story to suggest that people will eat each other if their backs are against the wall. But you don't learn about cannibalism in the novel until you get to it. Cormac McCarthy does a good job of hinting. It's like something lying underneath the surface of what humans are doing in this world. And it's tense and it builds, and eventually you get to a scene where there are cannibals, and it's horrifying. I don't think they needed to say up front that there are cannibals and that's what we gotta watch out for. Like, people aren't stupid. Let them come to that conclusion on their own. Leave it in people's imagination until we come to that. The rest of the narration is fine. I think they could have done without it, and people would figure out what's happening. Like, again, viewers are smarter than filmmakers seem to think we are. But there's other parts of it that I think are fine. It's just this one instance where he mentions cannibalism so early. It's like, oh, okay, so we know exactly what we're up against. There's no surprises anymore. I don't know. Didn't work for me. Okay, so there's a scene in the book and the movie where they come across some hanging bodies in a barn. In the book, there's not much said about it by the man or his son. They just witness it and they move on. In the movie, this happens.
It's not what you think. He committed suicide.
Why?
You know why.
I don't think the boy benefits from being made more naive. There are parts in the book and in the movie where the father has to teach his son about some of the more horrific aspects of humanity. But in the book, what I liked about this scene is that it's early, and it sets up very early that the son kind of already knows part of the deal with the apocalypse. Suicide is a part of it. And actually, once you get further into the story and learn more about these characters, this opening scene doesn't make sense anymore, even, because the son knows that his mother died by suicide. He already knows that people are taking it as a way out of this world. And so I don't know why he would be like, why did they do this? It was grating to me, because early in the book, they find the bodies and they just say, okay, let's go. And very early on, you go, dang, this kid is already like an adult. He knows about the world. I don't know. Weird change to me. I wrote, Charlize is mean. Yeah, Charlize Theron, she does a very good job of playing the wife. And they kind of extend her part in the movie, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. There's scenes with her that are not in the book that I really like. But the scene where she is saying she's got to go, she wants to die by suicide, she can't go on in this world. In the book, it's upsetting, but there's a part of you that understands. Doesn't condone it, but understands. It's a really miserable world to be stuck in, and she just doesn't have it in her to go on anymore. And she's not played to be just awful in the book. You know, it's like, it's miserable, but she's not like a villain. And she's not really a villain in the movie either, but she does say this.
I should just go ahead and empty every goddamn bullet into my brain and leave you with nothing. That's what I should do.
Oof, that's mean. That's mean. What an awful thing to say. Yeah. Anyways, I didn't like that. Like, okay, this point is very subjective. So, about midway through the book, they get to a shelter. They find an underground, like, bomb shelter, basically. And it is like a wave of relief for the reader. It's like, oh, they found food stores. They found warmth. They can cover the hatch so it's relatively safe from bandits and stuff. The man is thrilled, and he's thrilled to show it to his son. And in the movie, I don't know, it just kind of, I don't think Aragorn did a good job of expressing how excited he should be. He just like turns on the light in the shelter. He's like, It's like if you won like $5 on a scratch and win. It's like, oh, cool. I watched it again for this review, and it's not as bad as when I first watched. I think it's probably fine, but it just came off a little bit funny. The last in the bad column I have on my notebook is that I kind of thought they downplayed the man's sickness a little bit. You know, he's quite sick in the novel and probably going to die, and there's not really a game plan for when that happens. Like, he needs to teach his son how to survive. Pretty upsetting. This book's great. Like, honestly, it's awesome. It's so depressing. I love it. But yeah, it's like, you know that the story is going to get to this point, and it's always kind of in the background. And I think McCarthy does a good job of bringing it up intermittently so that you remember, you know, this is coming, whether they want it to or not, and they have to prepare for it. I don't remember it being as big a thing in the movie. And it's been a couple weeks since I've watched it. And again, goldfish brain. But I feel like he coughs a little bit at the beginning of the movie, and then at the end, spoilers, he passes away. I don't even remember him coughing up blood, which, like, he does several times in the book. I don't know. I thought they could have had a couple more scenes of that. I'm getting nitpicky. That's my whole list of bad. I have one thing in the take it or leave it column, the cannibal scene. So probably the second scene of intensity in the book, I think, is they come across a house in which there are people chained in the basement, and they are being eaten by cannibals. It's horrible. They run back up out of this like basement hatch. They look outside and they see the cannibals coming back up the path to the home. So they book it out the front door, I believe, in the book. In the movie, instead, they run upstairs, which first watch, I thought it was a little silly. Like, why would you trap yourself like that? But they do set it up that the front door is jammed or something like that. Like, they can't get out the front door super easily. And in the movie, they set it up so that you can tell that those cannibals are coming in the door, basically. He basically has no time to think about it. Like, do you try to smash through the front door and then they'll definitely hear you? Or do you try to run upstairs and hide? I think I had like a defense reaction where I was like, oh, changing the book is bad, but it actually works. They explain it well enough, I think. And it's very intense in the movie. So yeah, I think it works. I could take it or leave it. They're in this upstairs bathroom and they're pretty ready to put a gun in their mouths and kill each other as a way out. And yeah, you can hear them downstairs. It's a lot more intense compared to the novel, during which that scene of them debating whether to die by suicide, that happens just in the woods where they don't really know if they're coming for them as much. It works. And actually, now that I think of it, that point is a good example of, like, I think novels and movies can coexist, because the scene is very intense in the book, but I don't know that it would have worked as well on screen. So they made a change, and it's fair. Ultimately, I think that movies and books can do that. There can be differences, and they can exist as art forms and different tellings of the same story. Lots of times that doesn't happen, and they just make a bad movie. But yeah, I think it can happen. So I don't know. I guess like the biggest bummer for me is I don't feel like the film is going to be that memorable to me. The book has a style to it that's really memorable, and it's bleak, but it burns in your brain. The movie just kind of comes off as a apocalypse movie, which there's a lot of them. I think there's things they could have done to make it more memorable. And like, it takes no imagination from me to say that the Coen brothers should have done this in addition to No Country for Old Men, but they did a great job with that. The movie is still called one of the best ever. I don't know. I would like to see someone make a TV series of this. I think they could give the story enough time to make it better. And again, this movie was fine. This is a fairly non-controversial opinion. This is like the opposite of a hot take right now. So I think that's all I have to say. Yeah. Tell me if you agree with me, if you've seen and read this story. I would love to hear some comments from people about movies that they thought worked as movies in comparison to the book, or movies that do a worse job, or books that do a worse job. Tell me what you think about books versus movies. Again, I think the argument is kind of a moot point. Like, sometimes I get the sense that people get a little bit elitist about it. Like, the book is always better because reading is better, but they're just different. And I think you can make a story work for film, and sometimes making a story work for film involves changing the story a little bit. And I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. I mean, The Lord of the Rings was already like 12 hours of film. They couldn't have possibly included more details without it just not being a movie anymore. And I guess now they're making a TV series, which we'll have to see how that goes. I got nothing to say about that one. That's it. That's all I have for you. Thank you for watching, as always. I hope to see you again in the future. Thank you. Bye.